welcome, one and all to the 3B podcast as we are with you from the first kick to the last pitch. We gave Marv and Seth the week off, and we've got our favorite internet guru.
Okay.
Our
I'll take it.
SyndicateSports.io top editor, Mr. TJ O'Sullivan, who's also a baseball expert of his own, specifically for Coastal Carolina, but obviously taking in the sunbelt as a whole as well. So, TJ, excited to have you back again, man.
Excited to be back. I only come on once every couple months. I show my face just to make sure that everyone knows I'm still with the brand. Yeah, excited to talk some baseball.
Yeah, well, we're gonna change that very soon. I know that. So that'll be something that I know I'm looking forward to personally, and we will obviously be pushing you to the moon as best we can. But in the meantime, we've got some baseball to discuss. And with that, obviously, also, is it cold up there in Connecticut right now? Or is it because we got this little like chill spell coming through here in the southeast?
It's 60s right now. It was I was wearing shorts today. It was that's shorts weather for us. I know that's like winter jacket weather for you, but
not for me personally as a look at the App State rep in here. But yes, around here there's people that were wearing like winter coats again. I was like, all right, don't be ridiculous. Like maybe a zip up like I've got on, maybe a sweatshirt. Anything more than that is way too much overkill. I saw someone with like a beanie the other day.
It's funny. I remember when I was doing my college tours, my senior year of high school, I went to Stetson, which is in DeLand, Florida. It's about 40 minutes from Orlando. And I was checking out the school, and everyone on campus when I was there was bundled up. And they they're walking around like there was 4 inches of snow on the ground. It was like 72. It was 72 and a little humid. I couldn't believe it.
That's crazy. 72 is crazy. If you tell me 60, I could at least see some people with some coats and whatnot.
Nope.
I think it's still ridiculous, but 72, that's insanity right there. But yeah, I guess, that is what happens. Getting on with the baseball itself, though, in places where it's not very cold right now, right? Hosts with the most. Going into this weekend, we thought we'd see very possibly 2 hosts. Now we're looking at the possibility of just 1, but it's not out of the question that we could still have 2. The standings seat Coastal and Southern Miss really neck and neck after this past weekend. Not quite tied in the standings, but very close. We'll take a look there. But I think the first question I'll ask you, TJ, is it's just a 2-team race for number 1, right?
It's a 2-team race right now. App State has shocked a lot of people, but they are too far removed for this to for them to be in the conversation here. Coastal and Apps, I'm going to expand on Coastal later, but Coastal and Southern Miss, they're really playing for this weekend. Number 1, yes, but also the top seed that they can possibly get for this tournament, because I'll tell you right now, it looks like Southern Miss is going to be a host. If they do poorly in the Sunbelt tournament, as you see with Coastal as of late in the regular season, playing some of the lower ranked or lower in the standing Sunbelt teams, even a win has a huge impact on you negatively. So both of these teams need to make deep runs. In a perfect world, both of these teams meet each other in the finals again, like they did last year. And that's the only way that both of them have a chance of hosting. Right now, Southern Miss is in the lead. Coastal has some work to do, which is just crazy to hear, because It's only been the last week and a half that's even been a question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was looking really good for a little while there. Now we've got to put it.
2 weeks ago, the conversation was, is Coastal going to be a top 8 seed?
Right.
And now it's, are they going to be a 2 seed? And that's the just crazy what 1 week going 1-3 can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's a little different when you can have RPI help when you're playing those opponents. Obviously, didn't happen with them. So let's talk a little bit indirectly about that as we go through the series picks. I went 2-5, Seth 1-6. Marv and Chad, our resident Southern Miss fan, has always been a big follower and been on some of our bourbon pairing shows, which have been a lot of fun. Both tied at 3-4 with the series picks overall, but they also tied at the overall records in games at 16-5. I was going to try and put together a tiebreaker. Marv is on the road doing some business meetings and travel, so it was difficult to kind of get that to be put together. So unfortunately, there was no tiebreak, but we'll get to the games that did and didn't happen both today on Tuesday night, because we know that people like to cancel games at the end of the season, right, TJ?
Yeah.
We'll get you to expand on your thoughts on that. But some of them went the way a lot of people expected. A lot of people did expect Southern Miss to sweep JMU, a team at the top versus a team at the bottom. Not surprised there. The opposite kind of held true, as we just kind of alluded to, with Coastal and ODU. Coastal especially being the host. I mean, I saw the possibility of ODU taking a game for sure. Like, I didn't think Chad and Seth were far off by saying Coastal will win the series, ODU gets one. But I was on the side with Marv. We both picked 3-0 sweeps for your Chanticleers, and it didn't happen. That's a shocking surprise to you too, right?
It's a shock. I mean, I'll expand on it when we go through the actual series a little bit, but Coastal dropped the ball this weekend at a really inopportune time. Old Dominion deserves all the credit. I mean, especially Ben Tanton. I'll talk about Ben Tanton now. Tanton had a performance on Saturday. He threw 5 scoreless innings in relief. I mean, that is some crazy, and I believe he's a freshman. That's some crazy guts that you have against the number 8 team in the nation. When Old Dominion was, prior to that, they're in danger of not making the tournament, the conference tournament. Now they're middle of the pack, seemingly have punched their ticket with a 1-2 or a 2-1 performance this weekend. Huge series for Old Dominion this weekend, but Coastal, it comes down to the pitching, and I'll get to that later.
Yeah, and then we had another one that was a fight for a little bit of relevancy for both App State and the Cajuns there. A lot of people went App 2-1 because they were the host team, but the Cajuns get the win on the road. Marv was the only one that picked that. And I'll be honest, Marv picks against App on purpose because the last couple of weeks it's done him well to see his team win. So he's kept his promise to actually pick against App in order to keep the mojo going. But this time it actually worked in his favor in a way he didn't want it to. But he does get the victory there in that one. The two Georgia schools faced off. I took the upset. I said Georgia Southern's got this weird thing where they beat somebody they shouldn't. I did not know, because of the weather thing, that they were going to go a doubleheader on Friday. And unfortunately, that didn't pan out for me very well because Georgia State already won the 2 games Friday. And so Georgia Southern did get one in the end. Everybody else got that right. I got that one wrong. South versus Troy. Not a lot of people saw Troy taking the series, but Chad got that one right. 2-1. And yeah, we got Marshall. It was an even split with the Marshall ULM series. It went Marshall's way. So Chad and I got those 2 right. And yeah, nobody saw Texas State sweeping A-State this weekend, but that one missed all the way across the board. Again, that was the same as the Coastal prediction. So anyway, we got some people jumping in. Ben James saying, "What's up, everybody?" Chris Reitzel jumping in saying, "We are screwed." And he's talking about ULM there. Ben James very disappointed in that A-State Texas State final over the weekend, which is understandable. So let's jump over to everybody else's favorite part, the power rankings. Are we going to see a flip-flop at 1 and 2, TJ? What do you think there with Coastal and Southern Miss?
I think you have to. I think you have to see a flip at 1 and 2 for the entire season, minus maybe a week when Coastal went to the Bruce Bolt Classic early on in the season. Coastal has looked like the better team, even without Cameron Flukie. Now Cameron Flukie comes back, and it's night and day different. The bats have fallen asleep. There has been something happening in Conway where this second half of the season, Coastal really doesn't wake up the bats until the 6th inning. Like there's a huge stack going around. It's like 16 come from behind victories on the season for Coastal. And it's because they don't string hits together for the first 5 innings. And then the final 6, 7, 8, 9, they go on a tear. And it's like, you don't have to be that hard on yourself. You can score runs in the first half of the game. That is allowed. But it finally caught up to them this week. It was a tough week for Coastal. So I think you have to, just based on momentum and the way that both of these teams look right now, because Southern Miss has not given up an inch. They have continued to play some dominant baseball. You have to switch them at 1 and 2.
I agree, and I think we will see that. I think we'll also see a switch at 4 and 5 with App State and the Cajuns. I don't even know if it'll be a straight swap because you've got South Alabama there at 3. So what do you do with them? Where are you keeping them with the loss to Troy? Does Troy jump all the way up over them, and does Troy jump App or the Cajuns? See, from 3 down to 7, 8. Not sure what's going to happen, but there's definitely going to be some jostling there. It'll be interesting to see what we think. Again, these power rankings were done before the weekend series, so they will come back out again on, well, I think we got weekend games starting Thursday this week as it's the final week. So we actually have to be ready for those tomorrow as far as predictions and power rankings go. So we will be sure to do that. I don't think there's going to be a lot of changes towards the bottom. Maybe Marshall jumps above ULM a little bit. ODU probably jumps up maybe all the way up to 8, but we'll see if they, there's those teams over there on the other side. Are you seeing a lot of jostling at the bottom other than maybe ODU taking a little jump after beating Coastal?
ODU will take a jump. I might even see Arkansas State dropping a couple. Just because they were swept. They're at least going to flop to 8. But I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas State drops to the 9-10 range, just because it has been a tough second half for the Red Wolves. I apologize to Ben James, who's in the chat. But, it was 2 weeks ago we were talking about Arkansas State being the 4th team in the NCAA tournament, and now all of a sudden they're in danger of missing the sunbelt conference tournament. Just a tough stretch for Arkansas State. They got to turn that around this weekend.
Yeah, they definitely do. Ben sees an A-State drop all the way down to 11. That'll be
I appreciate the humility,
Yep.
but I don't think I would drop them that far. I think that they're still a good baseball team. I don't think that this isn't representative of what the standings show. I think that they are still, with their strength of schedule, because RPI plays a role in this. These are just the best teams, not necessarily what the rankings say. I think that they drop to at most 10. I would probably put them at 9 on just first glance.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Tim Reitzel jumping in saying ULM meltdown. Took a little longer this year, though. Yeah, I mean, we were all a little surprised. I think App State and ULM were both kind of the earlier season surprises, saying, wow, this team started off half decent. Could they keep it going, right? And unfortunately, App State's still towards the top of the standings in the conference as far as that's concerned. They're still 3rd right now. But, ULM did take a little bit of a dip there. And the RPI for App State, not good. So some of their opponents obviously padding some of those win-loss record a little bit.
I mean, I lost all credibility this past week when I called for a ULM sweep of Marshall. That didn't happen.
Right. Well, Marshall's got a good pitching staff. Honestly, they really do. It's just a little bit inconsistent, and then sometimes in those close games they don't have the hits to get the victory. So it was, I think, that one this weekend, and we just talked about it. We had a split, 2-1 one way, 2-1 the other, and I think it was a reasonable expectation for people to have difference of opinion on that because of how teams both played. Ben James got the question here: where do you think La Tech would slide in if they were in the conference now? Great question, especially because we know for a fact now right? It's kind of fun and nice to know this for a fact, TJ, especially for the football conference when we're looking at schedules, we're looking at travel, we're looking at what we're going to do, that La Tech will certainly be in the conference as soon as next season with Texas State jumping out. So I'm going to tell you La Tech sits at number 62 in RPI currently. They're currently in Conference USA with a 31-22 overall record, 12-11 within the conference. And they do have, I thought these were quad wins, but they just had their neutral site record up. But that's a tough question. You know what? Let's jump over to the standings real quick and see if current standings here. And we'll jump back to last week too, because I want to compare this. So they're at 62, I think I said, right?
Yep.
So keep that in mind. 62, 31-22 overall. They're really close to a South Alabama team when you look at not closely resume-wise, but at least just conference record and overall record and RPI. You're looking at them being very close to South Alabama and Troy, but a little closer to South Alabama as far as the record is concerned.
Yeah.
They've lost to some of our teams, I think, including ULM, which you see them on the other side. So
I don't know. Were we asking where they slide in on the power rankings?
Yeah. So there's the power rankings back up there.
I would say we're probably looking at anywhere from 6 to 9. That's any order, because I mean, like, there's going to be a lot of movement in that right now. So anywhere from 6 to 9. Troy, Arkansas State, Texas State, and ULM. Any of those, you could just slide La Tech in there, and I'd be happy with it.
Yeah, I think that's about right. Tim's jumping in here too, saying now or 5 weeks ago, which is a good point. Now probably around 6 or 7, which is true. They've been a little bit better towards the end of the season than they were a start. A few weeks ago, he said he'd have them down at 11, 12, which, again, anywhere from 6 or 7 all the way down to 10, 11, 12, I think is fair, right? Like, if they were in this conference, we'd know a little bit better because we'd have, better recollection off the top of the head about who they beat, who they didn't beat, who they should have beat, who they should have lost to. I don't have that right off in front of me because we weren't prepared for that question, to be totally honest, but it's a great question. I mean, it's kind of fun to already kind of look at that. And obviously, as soon as football season goes, it's fully on. La Tech.
I was going to say, just let me ask that question again in August when I'm actually paying attention to La Tech, and
yeah, exactly.
We'll get back to you.
There we go. That's going to be fun, man. 3 Louisiana teams seems like a lot, but it will definitely bring the heat with the rivalries they've had with Southern Miss, being in a conference previously with Marshall as well. So there was no end supply of some instant rivalry, instant heat as they come into this. Okay, first off, conference standings. We just took a look at the current ones, but this is what they looked like just last week. Again, at the top, Coastal, Southern Miss, App State, followed by South Alabama, Troy, the Cajuns, and A-State. Then on the other side of things, we've got ODU, Marshall, Texas State, ULM, Georgia State, JMU, Georgia Southern. I think Georgia Southern is the only for sure team that will not make the sunbelt conference tournament for the first time since they've been in the sunbelt for baseball, which is kind of crazy because I think besides last year, the 2 years previous, maybe even the 3 years previous, Georgia Southern's found themselves in the championship game in sunbelt baseball. So it's kind of an interesting fall from grace that I don't think a lot of people saw coming this year. I think some people had Georgia Southern pegged as a possible postseason entry. And that is obviously nowhere close to becoming a reality. But let's jump over, take this, maybe, TJ, and compare it to what we're looking at now. Anything shock or surprise you? I mean, the biggest mover, I think, is A-State falling from the left side over there at the top 7 all the way down to the right side and out currently of the Sunbelt Conference baseball tournament.
I mean, like I said before, A-State was in the conversation just 2 weeks ago for being the 4th team the 3 and 4 being Louisiana and Arkansas State. Those were the teams that we're talking about being potential at-large bids for the Sun Belt. Now Arkansas State is in danger of missing Montgomery, and this is a good baseball team. They just have hit such a rough patch over these past couple of weeks. 11-16, they go in, 11-13 to this weekend, which is just under 500, but it's respectable. Now they're 11-16. That looks a lot worse after the sweep, and now they've got some work to do. And there's a couple different, there's not going to be one series of the week or series to watch that we do. There's going to be multiple because there are so many that have implications for Arkansas State in particular.
Yeah. Well, I'm still going to make you pick one, but you're right. There's going to be like, I don't want to pick, but if you're going to make me, and that's what I'm making you.
I'm changing the rules. We're going to watch multiple.
There you go. Well, we're going to watch multiple all the time, but yeah. And look at that. RPI now sits at 60, which is still not too bad, not too shabby, not where you want it, obviously. But you're the only team on the right side over there, the standings, that's anywhere out of the 100s or right about the 100s or worse. And again, they had, 45 last week? Yeah, they were at 45 last week. So not hurt. I mean, I don't know. Is 15 spots a lot when you talk about RPI? That's a lot, or is it not the worst if you get swept? Because, to me,
an average of 5 spots a game, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And that's the effects of being swept. That you try to avoid sweeps, even 1 and 2. Like if you take it, if it's truly 5 spots a game, right? Let's just say, because I know that it's more complex than that, but let's just say you're sitting at 55. Even that is a hell of a lot better. 55, if you pick up one of those games sitting at like that 54, 55 range, you need to have a good showing. First of all, you pick up an extra game and you are actually 12-15. You're tied with you're tied with Georgia State, who has the tiebreaker over you. But at least with them going up against App State this weekend, you can pick up another game and slide in as the 10. Now you are a game behind. You basically need a sweep. You need App State to sweep Georgia State. We're just going to jump ahead. App State needs to sweep Georgia State if you're Arkansas State, and then Arkansas State needs to pick up 2 out of 3. That's the dream scenario for them to make it into the Sun Belt tournament. This is now, and with that, if you pick up 2 out of 3 in the next weekend, I'm not positive on who Arkansas State is playing off of the top of my head, but Arkansas State will be playing South Alabama, which is great RPI. So if you take 2 out of 3 in that, you're giving yourself another boost, and you're also in this hypothetical getting into the tournament. You make a deep run, all of a sudden Arkansas State's in the NCAA tournament. That's the impact that a sweep last weekend has on you.
Very true. Artie Cat jumping in, saying hi to us. Also saying, it really hurts for Georgia Southern after they've had some good tourney runs and proving, for a team like A-State, just get hot and get into the tournament and hopefully stay hot in that point. And Destiny, I haven't seen her around in a while, but she says, if it isn't the ball-knowing TJ, as we know, she didn't have a lot of love to share. We're the football TJ.
Don't worry,
TJ Corbin.
Destiny, you don't have to worry about that mean man until August. Okay, we don't worry about that TJ. Okay, the ball-knowing TJ is here. I got you.
Yeah, I don't think Corman knows much of anything about baseball. I asked him once if he wanted to try and do some baseball, but
I'm gonna make that a T-shirt. I'm gonna just say ball knowing TJ.
There you go. I love it. Any other? I mean, we see Coastal going from, what were they, 22 to 25. I mean, I guess that's actually not a bad fall for having 2 losses to ODU there.
I'll just point out that's the perspective of being swept as opposed to going 1 and 2, depending on who you are. So yes, 5 spots per game is a big drop. But yeah, you're now looking at Coastal, who had a sizable advantage in the conference standings, to now all of a sudden, like we were just talking last week. I tuned in last week. You guys were talking about, no, Southern Miss is going to have to prepare to be a 2 seed. No, that not when Coastal drops the ball against ODU. True. Now, all of a sudden, this weekend has huge implications, and Coastal, their schedule's not doing them any favors. They're going up against Louisiana. So
on the road.
Yeah. You pegged that game preseason as one of the most important series of the season for Coastal Carolina, and now it's the difference between the regular season crown and the 2 seed. That it's not the team you want to see on the other side of the field after the performance that you had last weekend if you're Coastal Carolina. And on the other hand, Southern Miss is going up against Georgia Southern. So if you miss a beat, I can tell you right now, I'll make my prediction now. Southern Miss is sweeping Georgia Southern. So if you're Coastal and you want to, we'll have to go into the tiebreakers. If you go 2-1 this weekend, you need a sweep now. I don't know who has the tiebreaker because they haven't played, but This is a huge weekend for Coastal now.
So are you saying we'll have another basketball like tiebreaker for this? Because
yeah, but not that crazy. We don't have to call Kara Ritchie for this one. We can figure this one out on our own. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge weekend for Coastal Carolina. This is, we can get into it now, right? Can we have the Coastal Carolina conversation?
Yeah, Destiny chiming in and saying Coastal would have the tiebreaker.
Okay, so you have to win at the very least 2 out of 1 because Southern Miss is not going to drop the ball against Georgia Southern. That being said, we said that about Coastal, and Georgia Southern picked up the last game of the series against Coastal. So maybe it's that Sunday magic or this week Saturday magic for Georgia Southern that keeps Coastal in the top spot. But
there's the tiebreaker comparing the series result versus app, because that's, again, to remind everybody, if they don't play each other, they go to the first place team below the 2 of them, or 3 of them, or however many are tied, and compare the records against that. Coastal swept App State. Southern Miss went 2-1 versus App State. So there's where the tiebreaker would come into effect. That's a pretty close tiebreaker even there, right? 1 game, and App State had a chance in all 3 of those games because they hosted Coastal earlier in this season, and a couple closer games. One was the end score didn't look as close as it was, but Coastal broke it open, as you alluded to, a little bit later with the bats than you would say would be all that comfortable. TJ, Destiny doesn't want you to jinx them.
Hey, listen, I'm not jinxing anything, okay? We're fine. But I'm just saying that Coastal has a lot of work to do this weekend. They have to now win the series. They have to win the series for standings, but you have to sweep for RPI, because that's one of the better RPIs that Coastal has seen at 48. They need to make the most of this weekend. They have been the on the bad end of the stick, for lack of better words, the past few weekends. You drop a game to Georgia Southern, and that hits your RPI pretty hard. But even in the wins against Georgia Southern, you take a hit in RPI. So then you have ODU. You lose that series. That's, a three spots, but that's also like you're now well out of hosting territory at the moment. Yep. A sweep of Louisiana and a long or a deep run in the sunbelt tournament. We're going to have the conversation again. Should Coastal host? That's what needs to happen. If you're Coastal Carolina, if you win the series but you drop a game, I think the only way that conversation gets started is if you win the sunbelt. If you win the sunbelt tournament, there's a lot that needs to go right for Coastal in the next couple weeks.
Very, very true. And the interesting thing here is, let's just say, like, why we're saying this is a 2-team race. Coastal, Southern Miss within a game of each other. App State is technically, mathematically able to jump Southern Miss, but again, Southern Miss would really have to do poorly this weekend in order for that to happen, because if they end with the same record as Destiny just alluded to, Southern Miss has the tiebreaker. So they'd really have to do a lot. App cannot do anything to jump Coastal, even if they could end with the same record anyways. Again, they don't have the tiebreaker there. So this is truly a two-team race for the most part. Again, crazy things can happen. We saw some already this past weekend, so it's not out of the question, but it would be rather difficult for App State to jump up there. And actually, wait, no, I'm not. Am I looking at that?
No,
So
it's
App
mathematically impossible for App State to be number
impossible.
one.
That's not number one, number two. But even then, it's impossible because Southern Miss holds a tiebreaker over them. So again, 1 and 2 are top 2 seeds in the sunbelt tournament, no matter what, which is a big thing, right? Both of them want that. And everybody else will be battling for position. Let's jump over to a little bit of the other side then, the teams that are struggling to make that jump. Do you think ULM or JMU have any shot to make that happen here in this one?
I mean, an outside shot, but once again, it comes down to how bad does South Alabama want to screw Arkansas State. That's really what it comes down to. If Arkansas State gets swept or only picks up one game and goes 1 and 2 in the series, yeah, both of those teams have they have a shot. ULM's going up against Troy. That's a tough series. And then James Madison's going up against Old Dominion, which is the better outcome, but Old Dominion just took 2 out of 3 from Coastal. So it is anybody's 10 seed, or it's actually anybody's 11 seed right now. The real story is Georgia State being 12 and 15 going up against App State. So now App State, if they have the series that we expect them to, 3-0 or 2-1, then you've got ULM Arkansas State with a shot. They're going to have to win the series. Georgia State's going to have to lose the series. Arkansas State and Georgia State did play each other, and I had it, and then I didn't.
You said Georgia State did own the tiebreaker, unless you saw it wrong earlier, but you said Georgia State.
Well, I'm going to double check before I lie to all these wonderful people.
While you do that, I'll put my hot take out.
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
you're not in the exact spots, okay? But I think you're looking at the Sunbelt tournament top 10 right now on screen. So I think A-State, ULM, JMU, and Georgia Southern all miss out. That's my opinion. Yep. I don't think again, we'll see some movement within those standings, but I think the bottom 4 are going to remain the bottom 4. The only one that I think could possibly make me look stupid here is A-State. I just think both them and ULM are just a little too inconsistent for me to think, hey, now they have to turn it on. Now they have to win. Now they have to sweep. Now they have, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't think I can trust
Georgia
them to
State does have the tiebreaker.
Okay.
So that makes things a little more difficult. You need to pick up a game. So you actually need to pick up 2 games. You need to pick up 2 games if you're Arkansas State. So I don't hate that take. Georgia State, I could see them getting 1 game against App State. We said they were going up against, right?
Yep. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so I could absolutely see Georgia State picking up a game against App State, maybe a Sunday. They pick up a game and they're in. That is pretty much what it comes down to, unless ULM sweeps Troy, which is an outside shot. So I don't hate the take.
Yeah, I'll stick with it. I say that's your field. But again, not quite as is. But the top 10 will remain the top 10, and the bottom 4 will stay there in some order. Artie Cat saying Lafayette climbing back in the rankings. He's saying beat UTSA this week, and that's a Texas State, and they are down currently in the 4th inning, 18-3. The Roadrunners are ahead in that one. That one be a little bit of an RPI boost for Texas State, I believe, because Roadrunners 34-17 overall, Texas State 31-21 overall, and those two teams do not like each other. It's a great matchup. towards the end part of the season for sure. And Roland Tollett says, why do ties look down in standings rather than up? Not good. Do ties look down in standings? What am I missing here, TJ?
I don't know.
You understand the reference there? I just want to make sure I'm not missing something obvious. Why do ties look down in standings rather than up?
I'm not positive on what that means.
Hopefully he can chime in and clear that up for us. One thing that we can talk about while we're on this, I'm going to go back to this view here, though. The canceling of games late in season to not hurt your RPI. The NCAA has come out with a memorandum or note, whatever you want to call it, a press release that says we will look at that. We will punish teams. But Dave over on Locked On Sunbelt brought up a great point. That's great that they've said that. Come show me when that actually happens, because they're not keeping an SEC team out because they canceled a game against somebody that's going to drop their RPI. Hard to disagree with that take, right? Like they're gonna keep out a team that's bread and butter and gonna whine and complain and all these other things. Like I don't see them actually doing it. I feel like this is one of those empty threats to scare you into playing the games anyway, just to say that they told you that you had to do it, make themselves look good. But what do you think here on the fact that it happens? Should it happen or should, what should be taking place here?
This is the problem that you have when you don't have any actual solid regulations on how many games you play in a season. You see the same thing with basketball, but a different thing going on, right? For baseball, it's RPI, cancellation of low RPI games, because when you play them, win or lose, it does poorly for your RPI. So why not just cancel it, right? In men's basketball, the trend as of late is for all of these SEC Big 12 opponents to start scheduling Sisters of the Sick Poor, going up against them, getting those wins, boosting their record in quad 3, quad 4. That boosts their net rankings, and then they go into the season. Whereas they're not playing any competitive games, so it can't hurt them unless they somehow drop a game to a team with the 6'5" center. It's not going to happen. It needs to be regulated more than just, you can't exceed this many games. There needs to be, you need to schedule every game that you schedule needs to be played. The only way that it can't happen is if you schedule a late season game and there's not enough time, as in literally it just doesn't make any sense to be able to cancel this game or to make up this game. Something along the lines of like Arkansas State, Arkansas Pine Bluff. I know Arkansas is a big place. Somebody tell me how far that is from Arkansas Pine Bluff. That's a quick charter flight. I don't know that should have been canceled. I'm not trying to call out Arkansas State here, but that's just the one that we have. Virginia Tech Marshall, that's also pretty close. That's a quick charter flight. You can get there, play the game.
That's a bus ride.
Yeah. So I don't see the point of getting canceled.
Second season in a row they've done it to Marshall too. They've yet to come up there and play Marshall in Marshall.
So I don't see the point in canceling Virginia Tech Marshall. You don't have time to make it up. No, that's not true. It's just going to be an early morning for Marshall. Like, just get them on the bus, get them some IO, go play the game. That's you can't game the system. That's the problem with metrics, is they will find ways to game the system, and you're starting to see that all over the country. So yes, I agree with Dave Schultz. Like, come to me when you've actually done it. But good on the NCAA for actually calling this out. The next step is actually set how many games need to be played, and there must be a committee to determine whether or not you need a waiver for a late season cancellation. Other than that, play the damn games.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Here's what I'd like to see. And I think this is easier to do in baseball than any other sport, right? We know football is almost impossible because you have to have stuff scheduled so far in advance. I feel like every year, right before baseball season, you're still seeing some teams schedule some games, right? Like it feels like the schedule is completed later. Some things moving around. Like maybe we'll add a game. Maybe we'll do 2 midweeks. Maybe we'll just do 1. So I would like to see, because I know this has gone away in basketball, but I love this part, the bracket busters, right? Put these teams that are close in the RPI, that are doing well in this conference and doing well in this conference, put those 2 teams head to head, right? It's going to be a resume booster and a resume killer for one or the other, but I think that creates intrigue. It creates matchups people want to see, creates matchups we don't typically see. And you've got to, I think Bracket Busters did a fairly good job of this, TJ. You have to remind me. They did try and keep it regional. I mean, they didn't have like a West Coast team coming all the way across to play an East Coast team for Bracket Busters. If I'm remembering correctly, they probably kept it within a short plane ride or a longer bus trip at worst. But I would love to see something like that, especially, again, when you're getting to see teams play each other that either haven't ever played each other before and the other thing, too, here is this isn't so much power conference versus mid-major type of thing that you see in basketball and certainly to a bigger extent, really, in football. I think there's a whole lot more level playing field when it comes to baseball, right? Like if you're going midweek, does a team go all out and use one of their weekend guys to get this big important win? Or do they keep with their midweek guys so that they, have an important matchup in conference play as well? Like I think the chess game that this could become makes this super intriguing. Tell me your thoughts on that, and then we'll get back to Roland's description of what he was really trying to ask us there.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down, it's almost like the chess match that you have to play when you're managing a regional. Like that's kind of what it comes down to. Like, how many arms do I want to use for this game? Like, it's an important game to win. So how am I going to, it kind of goes into the regional play at that point. I like it. I think that you could definitely do some version of like a first 4 for baseball, just a one-off. Like, I mean, they did it in the MLB for a long time. The wild card used to just be, it wasn't a 2-game or a 3-game series. It was a one-off, like, or no, I'm sorry, not the wild card, but there used to be, like, if you were tied, I think this was prior to wild card, if you were tied, one-off game, winner take all, winner goes to the postseason. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I think it'd be fun. Like, I know we see some ACC teams, some SEC teams, but there's some of our teams in conference that see very few of them, and so I think sometimes that would be a cool thing to kind of get that matchup you don't typically see, like, I don't know, like ULM and Duke. You know what I mean? Like that's not your typical matchup, but maybe both of them are somewhat close in RPI some year, and we're trying to figure out like who should get in. And there's a whole lot of resumes that are similar, and like have them match up and see what happens, because you're looking at a power conference school for vast other majority of sports, and then ULM, who's obviously one of the smaller players in all of Division I athletics. But, again, baseball feels like more of a level playing field in that regard, right? Like it's not the same, right? So you don't have to have the biggest guys to win in baseball. Be interesting to see if anything like that could ever happen. Okay, Roland's going back to his point here. Cajuns have played great against top teams, not so good against lower RPI teams. They haven't played many in the middle teams like ODU, Marshall, etc. You said if Coastal and Southern Miss are tied, they look down for a tiebreaker. UL will be interesting. So let's jump back into the look that we talked about here as the tiebreaker between Coastal and Southern Miss could become the App State series from earlier. I think what you're doing when you're looking down in the conference standings to get the tiebreaker is to get the next best team to compare against. If there's really no one above. Now, I do get his point when you get lower down, right? Like if Troy and the Cajuns are tied, currently sitting at 5-6. Why would you not look at how they did against Coastal instead of ODU? But I don't know if they always go down. That's one thing about the tiebreaker that, kind of eludes me. I would think they would compare them. They would jump up. But when you have the top teams, you can only go down. There's no one above to compare to. I guess, does that make sense to you, TJ? Am I making sense there?
It's you take, when you're talking about the two teams right at the top. Well, this also, by the way, it has an impact if we're talking about like the 10 and 11, right? If the 10 and 11 are at a tie and you're trying to figure out who's going to make the 10 seed, you don't start below them. You start with the highest common opponent. So like if that common opponent is Coastal, what's the record for each of those schools against them? In this case, Arkansas State and Georgia State, I believe, Coastal took Arkansas State 2-1, and Georgia State was a sweep, or they got swept.
Yep.
So that would be Arkansas State would get the tiebreaker in that scenario if they were tied at the 10 and 11. So it's not necessarily you're looking down. It's just in this case we are, because we're talking about the 1 and 2. Correct. So 1 and 2, there's nobody above them to kind of do that. So you have to go to 3. But like, if you were talking about Coastal and Southern Miss and you just picked them up and placed them at like the 4 and 5, and App State was the top common opponent at the 1, then you would still compare App State. I don't know if that's what was being asked, but that is the way that is. So please let us know if that clarifies things.
Yeah. And I will say it does make sense. Like if that's not the case, like let's say Coastal and Southern Miss didn't play App State, but they both played Texas State, who's down there at 7.
Yeah. As long as they both didn't play South Alabama, Troy, and Louisiana, then we go to Texas State.
True. But I think that probably is his argument, right? Like, why are we comparing a team that's middle of the pack? But that I do believe that is the fairest way, right? If you're going to look at a resume, you have to say like it has to be equal. You can't be like, well, they beat App State and App State was 3, and they both didn't play App State, so let's compare the other team to a different team. But again, also like there's a lot of anomalies that can go into that. Was App State for one team early in the season? Was the other team that they played late in the season? Was there health and injury concerns, right? So you have to look at the same team, because at least there you have some sense of similar metrics.
Well, but
right?
that's very difficult to that's very difficult to predict, right? If we're talking about App State of where they are now compared to like App State in the beginning of the season, where they didn't get off to a very hot start, but maybe it's because there was a guy that came back. Let's just say it was like a Cameron Flukie situation, right. And the guy comes back and he's pitching really well, and that's why App State is doing that's way too many moving parts to work into a tiebreaker. So like, we're just gonna have to live and die with that one. But yeah, it just goes down to App State.
It does. All right. So we kind of mentioned this, so we won't beat it to death, but just as a snapshot, the sweeps from this past weekend: Texas State, a little bit of a surprise. Southern Miss, not so much, getting the sweep over James Madison. Texas State doing it over A-State. As far as some of the scores, I mean, TJ, we said we'd touch a little bit more on. I don't know if there's any other guys you want to mention from Coastal or ODU. That first game, 16-8. It was kind of a run scoring game, but I mean, I think a lot of us were like, okay, but Coastal will probably handle them the rest of the way. Obviously that didn't happen, but was there any other people you wanted to give a shout out to or talk about specifically from that series?
Yeah. I mean, 5 RBIs for Rex Watson and Walker Mitchell, 2 big performances from them. That was just typical, nobody shook their head at that. It was Coastal doing Coastal things. And then the next 2 days happened, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Southern Miss takes the sweep from James Madison. The first one just 8-5 there, but they did score 6 in the 7th inning. Dre Barrett homered and drove in 2. Russo had 2 RBIs in the rally sequence in that one. Georgia State, again, they already completed the series victory, not the series completely, but the series victory on Friday as they got the first game 5-1 and then 10-5, doubling up the Eagles of Georgia Southern to take that series. But there was a deciding game that would not take place Saturday, I guess, because that was when the weather was there. So this actually, all series did end up, I'm sorry, no. It didn't take place Sunday. It did wrap Saturday. So we had 6 teams or 6 games going there. I think a little bit of a surprise with how big the score difference was with South Alabama beating Troy 12-1. You're thinking, all right, I guess the Jags look like they could be sweeping their rival here, but that was not the case. We know the Cajuns got a 5-4 victory over App State. Marshall 7-4 over ULM, and Texas State got that first one over A-State 6-2 in their sweeping fashion. All right, news and notes from 6-3 Monarchs victory over your Chants on Saturday.
No, I mean, I don't have any notes on this one. This was just a Ross Norman slip up, which, you know, he had a really strong middle of the season. He had a shaky start, turned into a pretty sure thing towards the middle of the season as the 2 in that 1-2 punch with him and Luke Jones. Just wasn't his day. There wasn't really anything to talk about with that game. There is something to talk about with the Sunday game, though, which I'll let you go through the rest of these.
Well, I'll go through all of them, but shout out to Gage Peterson as App State got the better of Louisiana 7-2 on Saturday. He's been pretty consistent. The mound for the Mountaineers in that one. Again, Georgia Southern gets the better of Georgia State in their finale, 6-5. Just a 1-run game. Georgia State did get close to completing the sweep there. And look at this score. It was a low-scoring football game as Marshall beat ULM 13-10 on that game on Saturday. Let's see if I have any notes on that one here in front of me in just a second as I turn through all these paperworks. Bryce Blazer homered, Marcus Aranda homered as well. 2 key RBI single by Jake Haggard in the 7th for the separation. That's actually from Sunday's game. My apologies. So we'll just jump over to that one. But yeah, 7-5 final in favor of the Warhawks over there to keep that one from being a sweep against Marshall on Sunday. Cajuns get that 12-3 victory over App State, 15-9. Texas State Bobcats complete the sweep over A-State. The Troy Trojans win 8-1. First baseman may have given a little bye-bye to the Jags dugout after the final out in that one. I know people love to see that. There was a scuffle and skirmish when UCLA did that to, was it Oregon this past weekend maybe?
Yeah. It was UCLA, Oregon.
I was a little surprised we didn't see a little bit something more come out of that, at least some more jawing and everything else. But we'll see. The Australian over there at Troy was having a little fun at first base after that. But yeah, you said you had some notes on the 9-2 final in the series finale for ODU as they took that one. Yeah,
I mean, we can take that off of the screen and we can get into an actual conversation really quick. There's been a lot of talk about the Coastal pitching staff right now, especially when it comes to Cameron Flukie. And I have a feeling that this is going to be misinterpreted. So I want to be very clear in what I'm about to say. Cameron Flukie is absolutely allowed to be not in midseason form right now. He missed 8 weeks of the season. Coming into the year, he was projected to be the best pitcher in college baseball. He missed 8 weeks. You know, he has 4 outings on the season. Only one of them has exceeded 2 1/3 innings because he's working his way back. I love that Kevin Schnall defended him and said, you know, like Garrett Cole, when he is coming back to the Yankees, he gets to play meaningless games in the minors to be able to get back to the point. You're throwing Cameron Flukie to the fire. Everything is correct. That being said, you do have to acknowledge the state of the Coastal rotation right now. Because regardless of whether or not Cameron Flukie I don't think anyone with a brain thinks that Cameron Flukie is any less of a pitcher than, when he's at his best. He's not, though. And you can tell that, like, these are 3 straight outings where he just hasn't been himself. There's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, this is the situation for Coastal Carolina. What are we going to do about it if you're Kevin Schnall and Matt Williams? Because the bullpen didn't do much better after the Georgia Southern and Old Dominion outings. I mean, Texas State, he comes back and you think Cameron Flukie's back. He's just on a leash. He goes 2 innings, scoreless, 2 hits, 4 strikeouts. Like that, it sounds like Cameron Flukie.
Right.
Georgia Southern on the road, he gets shelled a little bit. 4 hits, 6 earned runs, and a walk. And then he walks another against Old Dominion this past weekend, gives up 5 hits, 4 runs in 2 2/3. So, no, I don't think that this is like reason to hate Cameron Flukie, because it's not. He's coming back from a major injury. You don't know the mental toll that he has, being as though he's a high velocity pitcher, and your ribs, which is what he fractured, is like a big piece of the fulcrum that is delivering the ball to the plate.
We'll
what is
for 1 second?
Yeah,
pretty sure that's the first time in syndicate history fulcrum has ever been used on the show. So applause there. That's very good. Bringing up our vocabulary a little bit.
I'm studying for the SATs.
There we go.
So, no, I mean, that's really what it comes down to is Cameron Flukie is absolutely allowed to not be in midseason form after his 4th outing of the season with 8 weeks in between. But there needs to be something that there needs to be an adjustment that happens in the Coastal pitching staff, because you have lost the Sunday game. It has been the Sunday game. Ross Norman, like I said, it was an anomaly that he lost on Saturday this week. Okay. He has been pretty solid on Saturday, and the bullpen has been pretty solid on Friday and Saturday. Luke Jones and Ross Norman have been a 1-2 punch. It's been the 3rd game. And now you just saw what happens when you slip up in one of those 2 games, when you don't have Cameron Flukie back at 100%. So, no, it's not Cameron Flukie's fault. At the same time, this is the situation that Coastal finds himself in, and something needs to happen. There needs to be an adjustment. This is a scary part of the season for this uncertainty to be occurring.
Would you like to see him? How hard is it? Maybe you closer to baseball than I am. How hard is it to switch him to like a Friday or a Saturday guy, and then have somebody else switch? And
at this point, it's not happening.
No. Okay.
No. I mean, pitchers, especially at the college level, are on such a rhythm where I pitch once a week. I get 6 rest days, 1 game day. So in order for him to switch to a Friday or Saturday, you need to accelerate his recovery.
Gotcha.
Like in the majors, this works out fine because they're accustomed to, I'm going to pitch every 5th start. But at the college level, it's the same rhythm. It's just every 7 days instead. So it's very difficult to change him with the day. And I don't think that the problem is the day that Cameron Flukie is pitching on. I think the problem is my personal opinion, the way that you manage the bullpen on the Friday and Saturday games, because you need to account for the fact right now, until Cameron Flukie, once again, not his fault. I don't want that to be misinterpreted at all, which is why I keep making sure that it gets put out there. Until Cameron Flukie comes back and you let him off the leash for 6 innings and he throws and strikes out 10 like he usually does, you need to assume that he's not Cameron Flukie. You need to have the bullpen ready to go. You need to use your best bullpen guys, in my opinion, on Friday, so that, and save them, 1 or 2 innings, and then you save one guy if you need him on Saturday. And then you need to basically be prepared to pitch a bullpen day on Sunday until Cameron Flukie goes longer than 3 innings. That's just the way that they need to go about it right now, in my opinion. Fluky could be the kick in the behind that Fluky needed in order to, get back in gear.
Right.
Maybe this is what it was, where it's like, the mental toll that it's taken from this injury, missing those 8 weeks. Now, all of a sudden, okay, I need to step up because he is the leader of this team. He is the preseason All-American. And I know from sources that I've spoken to, he's a very competitive person. So maybe this is the kick in the behind where he says, okay, let me really work on my prep this week. And he comes out and has a great performance, and this conversation is for nothing.
Right.
But what if it's not? What if he's actually having a difficult time readjusting? Once again, it's okay. What is Coastal going to do about it?
True. Great point. And they are going to have to do it against a team who's also going to be fighting for everything they can get when it comes to sunbelt standings and or RPI. You can look at both things, right? They need the help in both as we look for more at-large teams to try and enter the field. This is the slate for the Sunbelt this weekend. James Madison versus ODU. You got the Inner Virginia matchup there. We've talked about this one at length already. App State at Georgia State. Marshall at Texas State. One last shot at the Bobcats for the Marshall Thunder and Herd before they end up leaving the conference. Coastal against the Cajuns. Troy versus ULM. Arkansas State at South Alabama. Georgia Southern versus Southern Miss, the Battle of the Eagles. One of them a golden variety. TJ, I'm pretty sure where you're going to go here. If you had to pick one, if I made you pick one series, which one are you going to? Then you can explain why you're keeping your eye on all these other ones.
No, I'm doing it the opposite way. Keep your eye on App State, Georgia State. If Georgia State picks up one, it becomes very difficult for ULM or Arkansas State to sneak into the Sun Belt tournament. That's what I will say. Keep an eye on Arkansas State, South Alabama, Troy ULM. But if Georgia State picks up a game, you can stop paying attention to it unless Arkansas State sweeps. That's what I'll say about that. It's obviously Coastal Louisiana. That is the series to watch. It has major RPI implications for both teams. It has, when you've got Georgia, the only reason it's not Southern Miss is because I think everyone with a pulse predicts Southern Miss to sweep this series.
Right.
They have not let up. They have not had the troubles at the top that Coastal have. So you watch Coastal Carolina, you see if they can pull a sweep out when they really need it, or at least a series win, because Coastal has the tiebreaker. 2 is the magic number for Coastal Carolina this weekend. They need 2 games and they win the regular season crown. Coastal Louisiana is your series to watch.
Coastal Louisiana, like you said, before the season, it was a series to watch. It was the series to watch in this schedule right here. And it still is the number one. And now we have a couple different reasons for that, some of which we've already talked about, so I won't get into each and every one of them. But that's just one of those ones that, like, we've talked about it on this show. The Cajuns have an atmosphere. They have a culture. They love their baseball. Having been there, they've told me, don't even worry about coming for football, like baseball. Come for a baseball game. You'll see nothing like it anywhere else, kind of thing. Well, I've been to Coastal, and I enjoyed the hell out of my time at Coastal as well. So they also have one great baseball culture. So the fact that these two teams are clashing in the regular season is fitting, because I think culture-wise, they both kind of go against the other, which also means that the Chanticleers are going to get it all weekend long from the Cajun faithful, because they do not let up and they are relentless, but they'll also feed you very well after giving you a hard time. But yeah, this is one that I'm definitely going to be tuning into. By far the most interested I am in any one series over the weekend. I did take in App State hosting Georgia State in Boone last year, and the winner of that game was going to the Sun Belt Conference tournament, and it ended up being App State in a relatively close game. So a good one, and we'll see if that type of thing happens for Georgia State this time around. As we know, App State will be in the field for the conference tournament, but where will they be seated? Obviously, Georgia State needs a little bit more on the winning side than App State needs to have. And this one, obviously, on the road in Atlanta for the Bus Lot boys. We'll see if they can get it done. One more that I'm interested in is Troy ULM, because I just feel like it's kind of a toss-up. I guess actually A-State, South Alabama as well. Like, which teams out of those four are we going to get? We've seen all four of them kind of come and go a little bit. I would say South Alabama's probably been the most consistent throughout the season. So, I'm interested in a lot of games this weekend. Is certainly going to be interesting to see where everyone ends up on the seeding side of things. I think we're finally going to get a little bit of a different look than we have these past few years with what's happened in the standings. With Georgia Southern not going to be involved this year is kind of a interesting aspect. JMU not likely to be involved, but could they do enough to get up there? So we'll have to see what transpires with that. TJ, this has been a fun time. We're going to have you as our guest picker this week, and we'll bring those out probably.
I'll show you how it's done.
There we go.
I know that we like to talk about how much red is on the graphic every week, but maybe we just go straight down 7 check marks.
I don't think it's ever been done. I think Marv had 6
until now.
I think Marv had 6, so it'll be a tough outing to try and beat that, but we'll see if you can do it. And
I'll do it.
Any last notes before we say goodbye to the fine people?
No, just really exciting week of baseball in the Sun Belt this week. South Alabama, Arkansas State, Coastal Louisiana. Those are going to be the 2 most heated games or series of the weekend. I can't wait to watch those. A lot of implications on the line this weekend, so very excited.
Yes. Be sure to check them all out. I think all games are still scheduled to be played on ESPN Plus as far as I know. So definitely be checking that out if you're a subscriber there. And until next week, we'll see y'all later.